Hey everybody, Tall Family Films here. I noticed a drip of oil in the driveway underneath my Titan, and when I went in to take a closer look underneath, it seemed to be concentrated around the oil filter. So I was actually getting like a solid drip coming down from the bottom of where the oil filter screws in. That's called the oil cooler. You could see, pretty good drip of oil there. The result of this was that as the engine fan would cool and I'd be driving down the road, I'd get oil all over the place, here, and it was all over the hoses underneath, all up underneath the car. Just really not a good situation. So the problem was not that the oil filter wasn't screwed on tight enough. It's actually, there's a gasket on the other side of where the oil filter screws into on this thing called the oil cooler. So I loosened the oil filter itself because I have to do that in order to access the screw, the nut that holds the gasket in. It's kind of a screw as well, you'll see. So you'll lose a little bit of oil doing this. If you use the right kind of oil filter wrench, you'll be able to reuse the same oil filter if you are new in your oil change like I am. I was not using the right kind of wrench, by the way. So a 22 millimeter socket will get this bolt slash nut off of the oil cooler. And then we can access the gasket. All right. So that broke the nut loose. We'll lose a little bit more oil when we take this out. If you see a tremendous amount of sludge coming out, and you'll know the sludge if you see it, you need to be changing your oil a lot more often. In fact, I would suggest you change it about every 500 to 1,000 miles for a couple of sessions until you clear that sludge out. It's just an indication that more frequent oil changes needed to be done at some point in the past. Okay, so that is all that holds this entire cooler in place. So it's completely free. The only thing that's holding it now are the rubber hoses on each side of it that are clamped in. And on the back side of this cooler is the gasket that's actually leaking. It's allowing the oil to slip through. So this orange O-ring right here, we're going to replace that, which will fix the problem. However, I need to clean everything up before I do that. So one very commonly misnamed chemical in the world of cleaning cars is brake cleaner. Brake cleaner cleans an amazing amount of things besides brakes. So I'm using it here. You can literally see the oil that has been dripped out over time. It just sprays right off with no scrubbing or anything. But I need to clean both sides of this cooler, and I need to clean the back side where the cooler attaches onto the engine itself. It's very satisfying cleaning this stuff off, by the way. You just see it all just disappearing. Alright, now let's flip it over and get the back side of this cooler too. I want to be completely serious for a moment that you need eye protection on when you're spraying brake cleaner. I have some on here. This stuff is no joke. It does not smell good. I'm sure it would not go well with your eyes. Alright, so now let's take a look at the new gasket. Here it is. Oh, that's upside down. Let's flip that over. Okay, 72493, except that 9 looks like an 8, so let me slide this out of the way so that you can clearly see what the part number actually is. 72493. So I got this at AutoZone. It is available on Amazon as well. You could probably get it at any number of places. I think I even saw it on Napa as well. So take a screwdriver and simply pry out the old O-ring. As you can see, doesn't take much to get it out. Okay, so once you have the old gasket out, actually right before we put the new gasket in, we should clean that back side of the cooler one more time. All right, so now the cooler is completely clean. The engine mount side of it is completely clean, and all we've got to do is put the gasket in. And that is actually simpler to say than it is to do. So it takes me a couple of tries here to kind of get the correct placement to get the gasket on there. So we'll all enjoy together me struggling to get this gasket to fall into the place. It actually seems for a moment that the gasket is too big, but that is not the case. So don't give up. I've seen some comments on Amazon, people saying this didn't fit. It actually does fit. It doesn't look like it's going to initially, but it actually does snap right in. You just have to have like 4 hands in order to hold everything to make it snap into the groove. But there you can see it is holding nicely. And once you have it in there right, it doesn't pop out. It gives you good friction, I guess, for you to be able to hold it in place in order to get it back to its proper placement and bolted back on. And I am not kidding, like this is a very simple job. As long as you have a 22mm socket, that may be the hardest part of this. But that's all there is. So now we're just putting everything back together. So just realign the cooler onto the engine and then get the bolt to screw back in. Took me a few tries to get the bolt aligned properly, but I read one thing online where somebody stripped this bolt. Don't do that. Good heavens, that would, if you stripped the engine side of it, that would be a massive undertaking to correct that. So take your time, get it done right. Okay, so once you've done as much as you can do by hand, then you need to get a torque wrench. And the proper torque for this particular bolt is 36 foot-pounds. So set your torque wrench to that. I'm using a click style torque wrench in this example. And that's 36. So now we need to put the filter back on. Remember, I had just changed the oil a week ago, so I'm pouring the oil out of my old filter into the new one. And the only reason I'm using a new filter is because I didn't have an oil filter wrench that would get the filter off without crushing it. And I didn't want a dented oil filter to be put back on the car. I have this thought that oil changes are cheap insurance to keep a car running well, and a $10 oil filter is not a good trade for a new engine. So I just went ahead and made the expense to put a new filter on. And oil filters are just hand tight. They usually are not hand tight to come back off. Once the engine heats up, it kind of creates a nice seal, and it's hard to get back off without, something to help you. So I just wanted to use up, this brake cleaner was almost completely empty at this point, so I didn't want a half or a quarter empty can left in the garage. So I'm just using the rest to clean up other oil that has spilled and been sprayed back as a result of this leak. Alright, so then a little wipe down with a rag. Never hurts. Cleans up anything that might be kind of a heavy deposit that didn't come off with the spray. Okay, so at this point you should start the engine and run it to about 4,000 RPMs for a good 30 seconds or so, and you'll hear the engine actually kick on here while I'm testing this. And then I'm just taking a flat blade screwdriver to scrape underneath, take a look and see. Looks pretty clean. So that would not have been the case prior to this gasket change. So I'd keep an eye on this for the next couple of days. Other than that, the job is done. So if this video has helped you, you can really help me by subscribing to my channel and giving this video a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. Thanks.